Okay, it says I'm live. So, should I believe it? I guess if it says I'm live, I must be live. Thank you guys. It says only one concurrent viewer. So, I see 29, but it's 31. But it's not accurate here. So, how are you doing, guys? It's Adult Beverage Friday. And we're doing a live stream once again. And the live stream, the format of the live stream is I talk for a few minutes and then I take Q&A for the rest of the time. How are you doing, guys? Hello, James Mason, Old Man, Michael. What's that? Lax Lifters, David, Gunther, Circle of Ravens, Milo Forbill, something in Russian, Alvaro Lacerda, Bruce Wayne. Hello, my friends. How are you doing? So just to remind you, if you're watching on the preview, on the replay, to make sure to hit that like button if you like, or dislike, whatever you feel like. And just make sure you give an opinion because that's important to the algorithm. So the only people who don't hit anything is if they're bored. So tell the algorithm that you're not bored. You're angry or you're supportive, whatever. It doesn't matter. Whatever pleases you is okay with me. So 73 Felix. I was just watching. I was just looking at a ham radio video right before the broadcast too. By the way, hello, is that LAX lifters? Is that what that means? LAX lifters? Is that what that LAX means? So hello, RQTEQ observer. How are you doing? By the way, I created a new channel that's going to be linked to this channel. It's I don't have it finalized yet, but I'm calling it Rob the Half-Baked Prepper. And what I want to do is do videos on the boat stuff and prepping things that I started with on this channel, but I'm going to start creating content on that to just segment it so that I don't mix it up with all the privacy topics here. And that's where I'm going to put the ham radio things. One of the things I'm doing, guys, is I moved my HF radio gear to my boat. And so problem number one is, how do you set up a HF antenna on a boat? I actually don't know. So I'm not sure how it interacts with the mast and, what kind of setup you can do. And it'll be interesting to see how that works. But so for now, I moved the HF stuff on the boat. I'm going to do things like solar and make it more, more off-grid. And I call myself the half-baked prepper because it's half-baked. I'm not really prepping in a serious way, in the sense that, I got everything on there, including food to last me a lifetime. I don't have that, but I like to play with some of the stuff. And so, I'm very interested in all the pieces that deal with prepping. And I guess I'm more prepped than the average person. But I couldn't compete with the serious preppers on YouTube that are like, they got their go bag and, got all their weapons and everything all ready to go. And, I'm just not that intense. So, but I'm so interested in it, especially things related to just seeing if you could live, off grid. So as more of an experiment, I like to do that. And I have an HF radio. As you guys know, I have a ham radio license, and I want to test it on the boat and see if that can work. And I already have marine radios on the boat, so marine radio is covered. And I already do marine radio. That's every day. I mean, that's ordinary. But I'm interested in experimenting and see what I can do with HF. So that's just some stuff that I'm going to be putting on the Rob the Half-Baked Prepper channel, which eventually I will link to this. You could probably search it now, but there's nothing on there. It's just one video. So I'm going to be setting that up and just splitting some of the content into two pieces. So thank you, is that MG? I can never figure out how you. I need glasses for some of this. It's like, is it MG Best? Let me pull that up on my other screen in here. MGS Best Productions. There you go. I never know you keep changing names too, so I don't even know what your new format is now. MSG Best Productions. How are you doing, my friend? What do I think about Proton VPN? Don't think about that. Okay, hello, Steven. I'll definitely be checking that channel out for sure. So yes, just splitting off the prepper stuff in a different channel. Not as many videos, but it's stuff I'm interested in, so I might as well do it. So my boat has been, I've been like setting up my boat for the last few months, and I really ignored my boat. I've owned my boat for a long time. It's close to 20 years, and it's like not, I've ignored it for a long time, and it's time to get back into it and update it. So I just put in new equipment. I've been spending all my time doing all the electrical and the wiring and everything, and put new instruments in, and so it's looking really sophisticated now. And I just put in new sensors in for like speed and depth and temperature and all that. And then in a few days we're going to put in the wind instrument, and I already have autopilot and all that all set up. So some of that I didn't have before, and I updated to new equipment, and I had to replace a refrigerator. Refrigerator was like 15 years old, and it just went down the toilet. It stopped working, and I managed to install a refrigerator myself. Too bad there's no videos on that because I didn't have the channel yet, but next time I'll be able to show you what I did on there. So there you go. So okay. So Rick Nova, don't update the G7 to Lineage OS, because the version that I load on there is not Lineage OS. It's Lineage Micro G. So it's not the same version. So don't just update willy-nilly without understanding. So, there's no reason to update it. If there's no update from Micro G, then don't worry about it. There's no reason to update it. Okay? If there's a reason to update it, you'll get an update from Micro G. Otherwise, don't do it. Some phones I install a plain Lineage OS, like if I do like a G7 Plus, that will be straight Lineage, and that you can update. So it depends on the model. Okay, so anyway, glad to have you here, guys, and small talk, I guess, just to get you started. So anyway, I'm doing that new channel, and then the other thing I'm doing is releasing another video, maybe tomorrow. It's an extra video for the week. Normally I only do one video a week, but I already did one, and it's about cloud computing, and just to answer a question that somebody asked me. And so I might release that because I have another video I'm working on for Thursday, and that has to do, I think, with video, live streaming, and if that's acceptable or safe using like Zoom and Skype and Signal and so on. So we'll address that in another video this coming week. I hope that's my topic. But the other video is already done. Hello, King Sing. So I hope that's my topic this coming Thursday. So anyway, the discussion tonight will be about a couple of topics. One is, people think that all you need to do is watch my video on DeGoogling. You get a DeGoogle phone and then you're done. And somebody says, "Oh, okay, so I'm safe now. I have a DeGoogle phone. Then I don't have to do anything else." Well, unfortunately, that's not true. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. But before I talk about that, somebody made a comment on my video. Somebody made a comment about my video, which was a very astute comment. And the comment was, some of these young people who work for Google, Apple, Facebook, where are their morals? Where is their understanding of right and wrong if they're allowing a company like Google or Facebook to do evil things? And by the way, this is not just limited to them. Just to give you an example, my niece works for a digital ad company, and she knows that the ad tech is used extensively to spy on each and every one of us. They know what data they collect, and they understand that doing that eliminates our privacy. But they say, well, heck, I get paid to do this. I make money, and so yeah, there's something wrong with this, so I'm going to keep doing this. And when she hears about what I talk about, it's like no comment. And there's these young people do this and they accept this, and it's like there's no morality about, hey, is this the kind of world you're building for yourself, where you're trying to build a surveillance society? And to young people, it's like there's no consequence. So they're the ones, from Zuckerberg on, from Zuckerberg on, they're like into doing so much collection. By the way, Zuck doesn't let people collect data on himself. So he even puts tape on his camera so people don't collect his data. Yet the intent of Facebook is to collect every piece of data about you and keep it forever and ever undeletable. They have all the lawyers in the world to make sure that you can't delete it. And there's no moral sense of right. And you work for these companies, so people say, oh, I'm so proud my daughter works for Google. So I get a lot of this, some of my friends, because I'm in California, some of my friends send their kids to schools in California, and of course they end up a lot of times working for Google or Intel or whatever, just because being in California. So they do that, and what are we breeding here? I understand that a programmer makes a good amount of money at Google, and if you're a young kid and you graduate from college and you get paid that kind of money as a starting salary, it's very impressive for a person with a starting salary to be making that kind of money at Google. Which is six figures to start at Google. And I guess when you get paid that much money, you put a hold on morality. You just set it aside, just like Zuck. Zuck does it for the money. And, what kind of world are we building when we don't even pay attention to issues like, just to give you an example, the Singularity. The Singularity is something I've talked about a lot in back during my Periscope days. And the Singularity is an issue brought up by Ray Kurzweil, who wrote the book on the Singularity, and he now works for Google. The Singularity is when the computers become smarter than people, and they project this to happen in roughly 20 years or so. And so the young kids now are fueling the environment for the Skynet, Terminator. So maybe they say, well, we didn't watch the Terminator. That's an old movie. Okay, so they don't know about the Terminator. Okay, and we don't watch, we don't read books like Orwell's book 1984, because that's too old. Where's Kelp? Kelp is the one that says we don't read old books like that because that's that's too old. It's not relevant. So you don't know what Orwellian is. So okay, so now you're building this world of, ultimate centralized power with somebody centralizing the information. And once you do that, it's irreversible, by the way. That's what happens with this. And we're moving into this world, and people say, well, we don't care. We just care about social media and how we can get famous social media, make a few bucks. And, I just wonder. So for those of you who are young, some of you here are young, and the people on my channel tend to be a little bit more informed. And I'm just wondering about, those who work for companies like Google and Facebook. Is there something missing here? Did they put a pause on morality, or they have some other explanation of the future that I don't see? Do they think it's it's all benign, that no one can centralize power just from all the information of the world? From the time you're an infant, now there's information about you. I guess they've never heard of the word doxing. They don't know what doxing is. And I guess you can never be hurt by doxing. So, because we're all perfection. So if you live a perfect life and there's nothing ever bad that ever happens in your life that could embarrass you because you're so special of a human being, then I guess you don't have to worry about doxing. But, most people make mistakes. No one's immune for that. If not you, then somebody in your family or your relative, and they make mistakes. And sometimes you don't really want that to be discussed or open because, you like any normal human being, you're concerned about your image in society. But the young people, they don't seem to care that there's a possibility that this is going to hurt you big time in the future, because everything you put on the internet is irreversible. I don't understand it. So I raised that question. I don't know what the answer is. Just food for thought. It's disturbing to me, and somebody raised it on the channel, and I don't know the answer. But I have my own relatives. I have two of them, two nieces. Well, three of them are in marketing, and two of them are specifically in digital marketing, doing the, browser fingerprinting and all that. That's what they work on. Browser fingerprinting and finding out every which way to zuck you, so they know everything about you. And they think that's absolutely cool. They get paid for it, and they make big bucks. They say, oh, yeah, we're going to keep doing this. This is a good thing. And nobody ever pulls back and says, that's immoral. Okay, there you go. So that's just a minor rant to think about. And since I have my own relatives that do this, it's just a wonder to me, if this generation, starting with Zuck, put a pause on morality. So just something to think about. Now, the question that I was asked, and this is commonly asked of me, because my last video was talking about de-Google phones, and I said if you de-Google a phone, you remove Google, Apple from your phone, as I have here on my phone here. So I realized, by the way, that I'm pretty much out of stock of some of the phones. I just got a few, so we'll be adding some this weekend. But yes, I understand that right before the video, there was a run on the phones and they all disappeared. So anyway, yes, I am short on phones, but be stocking up starting today. So we're flashing them now, and there should be some this weekend. But anyway, I'm using this phone here, and this is DeGoogle, and this has no Google on it. I've never logged in to the phone, so the phone actually has no identity. So the phone cannot be correlated to a particular individual except by some other means, like an IP address or the carrier. The carrier will know, but the carrier doesn't share that data. So the carrier has the data. Okay, that's one segment, but it doesn't share it. And there's the other segment, which is the social media companies and social media platforms that also take your data and sell it. So this phone has no identity. So it's safe. It's enough. All you have to do is get a De-Google phone, and then you're all set to go. The answer is, of course not, because tracking is it's a constant battle, and De-Googling does not stop them from collecting the data. And I want to make sure you understand this. De-Googling does not necessarily stop an absolute collection of data. What De-Googling does is stop identification. So because the phone, it will still emit some data, but the phone is no longer identified. So what is going on is a different approach to blocking your internet traffic. The approach of a De-Google phone is called disinformation. Okay, since they can't relate this to an individual, so therefore it's X user using this, doing X number of things, but nobody knows who X is. Okay, now how can they know who X is? Well, your IP address. So in the past, they can say, well, which email uses this IP address, and then they can do some indirect correlation if you're not taking care of other details like an IP address. Or here's another case. You may not have a phone giving information to Apple and Google, but using something called browser fingerprinting, they still attach your activity on the internet to some entity using the phone, and then from that they can attach it to an IP address, and from the IP address, from past behavior, they could assign it to an email address. So not directly from Apple and Google, but from other sources that can be done. So I just want to tell you that the battle is kind of a broad thing. It's, you have to actually think about all this. The advantage of a De-Google phone is that the data becomes very difficult to assign to an individual because of the disinformation. So there's data being collected, but they don't know who it is. So, but it's not complete because one of the pieces of the pie is the IP address. So locations, you can stop with this, no problem. So if you're stopping location, if you don't stop the IP address, then you're zocked. So as you know, one of the two big products that I sell is a Brex router, which is a VPN router, and the phone. And to be honest with you, that kind of eliminates a big chunk of the identifiers. It doesn't stop all the tracking that goes on, but if you don't have an IP address and you don't have a device fingerprint from the Google and Apple phone, you in essence have this information being sent out from here. It can be anybody. So without a location, without an IP address, it's hard to assign that to anyone. So the two major pieces you still have to protect is IP address and De-Googling a phone. Now on a computer, it's a little bit different. On the computer, the issue is browser fingerprinting and the IP address. So those are the two major pieces. And I mentioned that an email address can actually be correlated to an IP address in the past, and that can then be used to track you. Now, how is just so you understand this, because many of you don't know this, and it's amazing, some of these so-called geniuses in privacy over the internet, and they don't even mention something this zucking simple because they don't really know. All these so-called privacy guys on the internet, there's not that many, but they don't even tell you that your email has your IP address. Zuck, I would never even have email on unless my VPN is on. I will never do that. The reason is somebody can capture your email and it's unencrypted, and on the header your actual IP address is on there. The first step of the email is to say this came from this source, and it actually gives you your IP address. Go look at it. go run like a Thunderbird email and go look at the header and see if you can see your IP address near your name at the bottom. Okay, and you'll see it. So if you use a VPN, that IP address will be the VPN IP address. But for most people, it's not. Now, what happens here, and this is the aspect of information that most people don't understand, is that data is cumulative and data is connected because it can be indexed. So one of the things that happens is your IP address and email is collected in a database together with location. So now they have a location database indexed by email, IP address, and an email address. So if they have one of those three pieces, they can actually find you. So if they have a location, they can roughly say, okay, in this GPS coordinates, who are the people at this location by email? Or you can do it in reverse. I got somebody's email. I wonder where he lives. And then they have a database and can say, oh, yeah, we spotted this guy at this location because he was using this phone and the ad picked out the location. Or the other situation, which is I have the email address. I have the IP address. What emails have been associated with this IP address? And then they easily find an email that's associated with you. Which means you even email something you got to think about. You may have to recycle or change your email. You may need to rethink how you set up emails because it can really point to you. So if you have a VPN, then part of that gets canceled out. If you're using Tor, if you change your email, some of that information then gets confused and it becomes less and less important. So in my case, I always use a VPN. So there's, over the years, very little information about a specific email being connected to my IP address. And I've already done a search of IP address and location. And so far, my location doesn't, my IP address does not reveal my actual location because I blocked that over so many years. So how many of you do that? No, but it's a very rare thing, but I think in advance. So I've been doing this for a while and I've successfully done that. But for many of you, you haven't done that. And it does take some planning to start thinking about all this. So de-Googling a phone is just one step. It's a battle, but you have to think of it as kind of a fun thing. It's not as tedious as you think. Because even if you made a mistake and the information's out there, then you can confuse the issue with disinformation. And so if it's too late, there's data out there already, then you confuse the issue. You send out a bunch of disinformation and maybe the old information disappears and they said, oh, maybe he died. Maybe, something. He moved to New Zealand. So, some major change that make you untrackable. So that's the kind of information you want the big databases to think that something changed and therefore they can't track you anymore. So double J, spy versus spy. So yes, it's it doesn't have to be perfect, to be honest with you. Even doing a VPN and a De-Google phone is quite a bit. It's quite a bit. I mean, I would say that's 70% of the battle. 70%, that's a big chunk. So two simple things, which, happen to have products for. Having a Brex router at your house to protect your VPN, your IP address, and having a De-Google phone is perfect. Now, some of you say, well, what happened to Linux phones? I used to be talking about Linux phones for a long time, and suddenly I don't. And some of you think, I'm kind of cheating you on this, and some of you followed me because I was talking about Linux phones. The problem is, I have to be honest with you guys. I can't get a Nexus 5, so they're very hard to get. I have two I can check out right now. I just got two, and I'm going to inspect them and see if they're actually usable. But they're very rare. They're very hard to get. So because of that, I can't tell you, hey, you need to do Ubuntu Touch or some solution like that if I can't get it. And then the only phone that actually is fairly new that can use Ubuntu Touch is a Pine phone. And unfortunately, it's not ready. So I don't know when it's going to be ready. It's still unstable. You can't even make a stable call yet. Same with the Librem 5. So until that's stable, I can't promise you and push you to a direction where you can't even use the phone as a daily driver. So for that reason, I have to pause. And to be honest with you, the only solution right now is a DeGoogle phone. So I want it to change because I want people to use Linux phones too. But I don't have anything I can provide you or point you anywhere yet until the developers of those platforms pick up the pace and figure it all out. And it's a hard thing for them. They work part-time doing this, and unfortunately part-time will cause suffering for the manufacturers of the phones because they need a final OS that they can say works, and then they can sell a lot more Pine phones and Librem 5s. So both of those solutions are not here yet. I don't even have a Librem 5 yet. It's been a year and a half, and since I ordered it, and I don't have it. And will I get it in October? Honestly, I don't want to get it too soon if it's not going to work. Delay it as long as necessary, but make it work. Okay. One day I will have a Librem. One day. Yes. One day I will have one too. Do I want one? I don't know. I already have a Pine phone. A Pine phone is fine, except I don't have a stable version. I like to do some software development on it, but I can't do it until it's a little bit more stable. LAX, they can update the software on your Tesla. Has anyone tried the hour? What? I got it. Thanks, bud. Appreciate your knowledge. Has anyone tried the Purism Phone? Well, some people have. They have an early model, and obviously there are problems with it. So I mean, it's getting close. So it's getting there. So anyway, just again to remind you, I'm splitting up my channel into a sort of a half-baked prepper channel. Rob, the half-baked prepper. I may change the name, but that's what it is right now. And the intent is, and I'm not asking you to sign up yet because I haven't put anything on there yet. But my goal is to put some of the things that I do that relate to ham radio and solar power and all that, because I want to do a little bit of that, a lot of it actually, and put it on a different channel so I don't confuse the issue and confuse the algorithm. So anyway, that's the plan at least. So I will be doing that. So anyway, this broadcast is sponsored by Linode. Let me just put that on screen here, and they have a special if you use Linode on linode.com with this link, Rob Braxman. You will get a $60 credit or 60 days if you want to try out setting up a Linode server for programming, Nextcloud. There's many things you can do. In fact, that's my next video, probably tomorrow, is to talk about cloud computing. So that's on Linode, and thank you for sponsoring my channel to Linode. They're a good company. They've been around for a long time. They were around before Amazon AWS, and they're obviously not as big as Amazon, but they're a very solid company. I've known about them for a long time, and very, very good people, and very, very Linux oriented since the very beginning. And if you want to set up some Linux servers, they're certainly a place to go, and fairly inexpensive. Price is good. So you can use that link in the description. Okay, I still can't get in. I can get in, but it's slow, so I don't know. I may have to reboot it. Something may have happened. It's very slow getting into Brex. Just tried it. So I'll reboot it after broadcast, and probably that's all that's needed. So it seems like it's slow. I just tried it before the broadcast, and it was slower than normal. So something is like bogging it down. Maybe I'm getting a DDoS attack. Who knows? But or maybe just something unstable is running right now. Maybe somebody did an upload and then it hung. What do you think of Android? Is it bad? I use a device from Samsung. Did you watch my last video? Obviously, Android open source project is one of the best solutions for privacy as long as you haven't put gaps. Google apps. So any AOSP, and I disagree highly with other people over promoting their solution, and I'm specifically talking about some people overly promoting Graphene OS, thinking that somehow they have the holy grail here. I disagree that you need to have a specific version like Graphene OS to achieve the privacy goals that we're talking about here. Some of the supposed things that are being protected by Graphene OS are not, in my opinion, real life threats. Some of those are theoretical threats, which I don't personally think of as a great concern, considering how we're going to use this. So if you don't work for the CIA, I wouldn't be too concerned about that. It doesn't really concern us to use that. As long as there's no gaps in it, you can use plain old GSI, generic system image, on using AOSP, which is sometimes what I use. It's what I use on this. And Android 10 is actually is pretty secure already. Android 10 is pretty secure. It already has latest version of SE Linux on here, and in spite of what the people, some of the people who have been kind of spamming my channel, posting comments about Graphene, and Graphene is fine. I don't have a problem with Graphene, but it's some of these posters who are overstating their cause and saying, well, this is better than Lineage or whatever. In some cases, I don't even use Lineage because that doesn't matter. Somebody said, well, I need secure boot. If I'm not going to use your version on the phone because it doesn't have secured boot. And it's like, who cares? It has verified boot, which means if you modify the boot loader or any of the system files in any way, the system will reset. So you can't just go and say, I'm going to go change something on here, because when you do, then you lose all the data. So it's kind of like overkill. Yes, it gets locked down, and yes, you do not lose your data because they can't even do that. But in the worst case scenario, even on these, they can't capture your data because it will reset. So what the zuck? What's all this too much drama about stuff that it doesn't really seem that it's important? If you want to do any version of AOSP that you want, the only rule I tell you is do not use gaps. You can do whatever you want. If you want to use Lineage or some other version, it doesn't matter as long as it doesn't have gaps. You can do a plain old GSI, generic system image, without using Lineage OS. I don't really care. It'll work fine because without gaps, it's good. And there's nothing you can do. I don't actually know how I could steal data from here using an Android 10. I don't know how to do it as a hacker. And I'm a hacker. I don't root these phones. So when you start playing with these, it actually causes a data reset. So who would try to do a reset? Who would try to manipulate a phone if it's going to reset? Because it's going to be obvious that somebody went on the phone. And when it's reset, your data is lost anyway, so they can't steal anything. So what would be the point? So is that really a fear? Somebody has to give me a real life case here. If I'm wrong, somebody needs to tell me. Okay, so this is a scenario. Well, I want to know what the scenario is because at the moment I don't know what it is. Okay, at the moment I know that Android 10, even a GSI with no gaps, is fine. So I'm not telling you to say, use the specific, ROM. Use, some of you want to use some version, some of you want to use Lineage, and some people say, well, Lineage is not secure and all that. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Do you have an actual threat in mind? Don't be theoretical. I don't like that when somebody has a theoretical approach. Show me an actual, attack that can break into it, and then we'll see if it's valid, and then I'll take it back and I'll tell you, yes, somebody found it. So at the moment, I'm not aware of one where it wouldn't wipe out your data. I mean, I've tried. I've bricked many of these phones. I've played with them. You can't even modify any files on here without causing it to do factory reset on Android 10. It actually, it has something called verified boot, and if the hash of the directory changes, it doesn't work. And so So if you root, and I don't root. But if you rooted it and you modified something, then, it'll be a different story. But I don't root them. The phones are not rooted. So when it's delivered to you, it's not rooted. It's still, plain old Android AOSP, unmodified. So should be safe in that sense. It's not, nobody's playing any games here, putting stuff that you don't know about. So, anyway, let me just go to your questions here. Good to know you know something of all my relatives use iPhones and Android stock. VPN is apparently being hacked daily. Any advice, like sign out of VPN nowadays, please? VPN is apparently being hacked. I'm not sure what that means. So if you mean if I use Android 10, I do, with no gaps, and use a VPN, will I get a high privacy? Yeah, actually, as I said, that probably covers 70%. 70%. Now, there are other things you got to do. So, I mean, you can't, just as an example, you can do all the privacy with all that. You got your De-Google phone and you got a VPN. And then you go on Facebook. What the fuck? You just wiped out everything you've gained. So you're already at 70%, and then you go to Facebook, and now you're down to 30%. Okay, so Facebook is like a big negative. So for those of you who don't know this, as a doxer, the first target for me to dox is Facebook. So if I want to get information about you, I go to Facebook, and some of you say, but I have permissions, I got my privacy settings. And bullshit. I don't care what your privacy permissions are. If you're on Facebook, I can take your data. I can take any data from Facebook. You can't hide. If you think you can, then you're fooling yourself. There are many, many little tricks I can do on Facebook to get your data. So, some of them have been locked down over the years, but my goodness, back in the day, some of these loopholes were so huge that, I could find out information about somebody who had no public profile. Their public profile was completely blank, and I got information about them with a lot of detail. So, yes, 70% of what you do to protect yourself is done just by doing a VPN and a De-Google phone or AOSP with no gaps. But there are apps, and there's just few, Facebook being the main one, but all the Facebook properties have some special spying software. Zuck is so intent on spying on you that it's pretty hard to beat. So if I had a way of avoiding some of the evil that Facebook can do without eliminating the account, I would tell you. The problem is I have none. I don't have a solution. I've tried. And they're just too extreme with what they do. And they're really so evil that they, again, a lot of immorality in people in that company. And by the way, they pay their employees, just like Google, Facebook employees get paid a lot of money, a lot of stock, and they They make big bucks. Some of these young guys have stock that they can buy homes and so on, and the promise of money makes them put their morality on hold. So they say, well, we don't really care about spying. I get paid for it, so what the heck? So, my gosh, guys, think 20 years from now. What are you building here? These are the people building Skynet. So, crazy stuff. Anyone with what? I already have a Tutanota. I already have a video on Protonmail. The answer is exactly the same. Go watch that video. The answer is exactly the same. It doesn't matter if it's Tutanota. Now, Protonmail is a little bit different because I hear, and there are rumors, and it's not on the video, but there are rumors that Protonmail is actually funded and maybe even controlled by the CIA. So that's the rumor. If that's true, then that's even more reason. And I don't believe Tutanota has that same rumor around it. So, however, that doesn't change my response that if I'm going to be secure, I might as well have my own mail server. I'm going to tell you that my own mail server is more secure than Protonmail or Tutanota because I control it. Okay, so other than that, what's the point? So I don't have any reason to go with Protonmail. How is it going to be any more secure with my own server, the server that I control myself? Nobody else runs my mail server but me. So that's the most secure. That thanks my half, I'll do that. Yeah, it's just time consuming, and I don't know if I can. I have to charge a good amount of money for it. It's expensive. It's time consuming to make, time consuming to maintain, and do I do it? Do I do a mail server for cheap when it takes so much attention? So yeah, so it's not something I can do for $99 a year now. So if that's what you expect that I can, first of all, you have to pay for the server. So the server alone. And then on top of the server, then the programs. So you have to do the server and run the programs. And then you have to learn how to do some basic configuration on the machine itself. Like Rob mentioned in another video, if everyone had their own server, no need for ISP. There's actually there's an even more fantastic option. If we all had a mesh server, in theory, we don't need the internet. If you set up, and I set up a small mesh network example in one of my videos on ham radio, and I set up a small one, mesh server that I have around the area here. It's an emergency system that I set up, and it runs. And the problem is there are not enough nodes. Can you imagine if everyone if every neighbor, at least every other house had one of those? Then we don't need the internet because we can actually traverse the internet through our own radio frequency network. So, you could do that in if you're in a prepping community, you could come up with your own internet that is not an internet. So there's stuff that's why I want to do a separate prepping channel, because some of this is more interesting, to a prepper than to the average person. Obviously, Gmail is not anonymous. Gmail's not made to be anonymous. Gmail's made to be disinformation. So I use Gmail for an email that has no identity. That's perfect for that. Let's say you have a Twitter account, and let's say it's and I say, I want to make a Twitter account for, I want to make an email for my Twitter account, and I call it robtwitter@gmail.com. That's a perfect use for it. There's no need to spend money or time doing some other email. The purpose, Gmail is perfect for things that have kind of a unimportant reason for existence, especially for things that only are made for two-factor authentication. So social media is a good example of that. So let's say your name is John Smith. Instead of saying johnsmith@gmail.com, keep that email address secret. For your social media, you come up with, say, johnsocialmedia@gmail.com. I mean, or some random bunch of numbers. The point is, because it's not connected to your real name, that's the way you want to do it. And somebody asked me this question too, I might as well answer it. What about two-factor authentication? If you have a phone, is it okay to put a SIM card from an existing phone into this, meaning retain the same phone number? The answer is, as far as Google and Apple and whatever are concerned, it doesn't matter, because a DeGoogle phone does not transmit the IMEI IMSI on the internet anymore, at least not on Android 10. Okay, that's been blocked. So they're not going to get information about that. They don't have a Google ID, so there's nothing on here. Location's been blocked. Wi-Fi scanning with the tracking, 24/7 tracking of location is gone. So the device doesn't have an identity. So you don't need to worry then about the SIM card, because it doesn't even know the phone number, or there's no app that can get access to the phone number since there's no Google. Google knows if Google were installed, but since there's no Google, it doesn't exist anymore. So I'm not really worried about that, putting SIM cards on here. Sure, you can move a SIM card over from your other phone or existing phone number. The question is, what about two-factor authentication? That's different. For two-factor authentication for social media, I would use a completely different phone number. And I would keep changing it also. So I use a SIM card from Ting.com, and I have on BraxMe I have a referral link. So if you're going to use Ting.com, I appreciate using my referral link. And Ting.com is good for this, because for $10 you can use a one-time 2FA, two-factor authentication, and then you can dump it, and anytime you want to move it, you use it, fire up and use a new SIM card again. What I use it for is to create a Google Voice validated by a temporary phone number, which is not temporary to Google because it's a real phone number. Once I validated the phone number and Google Voice is active, I then went back to Google Voice and deleted the phone number. So now my Google Voice is not attached to a phone number. Besides, the phone number was only used once, so you can't search the internet on the phone number because it's never been used before. So and the number is now, the phone is attached to an old iPhone with no SIM card on it. Well, now I put a new SIM card on it for 2FA once in a while. So I needed to do 2FA a couple days ago to set up a new Google YouTube channel. So for that, I had to get another Ting SIM card, put it in, took the number on there, and then once again I could kill the phone number after a month. I have it for the month, but I could kill it, and I have a stack of SIM cards from Ting.com. I got, like, I don't know, 50 of them. So I can, I bought a bunch of them, and then and they're old. They're old SIM cards. They're probably a couple of years old, and then I use it. When I'm done, I throw it away and use another one. It doesn't cost to use it. So I can end the phone number, use a new phone number, and that's what I use for 2FA. So I don't use my normal line for two-factor authentication. Now, you can keep a phone number for a longer term. You can do that, especially if it's not something known and attached to you through some other identity. It's fine. So don't be too afraid of that. I'm just saying the issue is, be careful about linking identities. So if you use the same phone with your Facebook with your real name and then used it for Twitter without your real name, well, they're going to connect the two. So 2FA with a different phone number disconnects the data. So that's very, very important. Are those new SIM cards or used? They're new, of course. You cannot use a used SIM card. There's no such thing. they're old SIM cards in the sense that, I bought them a long time ago, but they've been aged, but they're brand new. They've never been used before. Ever think about going to an old BlackBerry? No, I already had one. I sold it. Will Ting still let you buy multiple SIMs at once like that? Well, I did. Why not? You buy it from. You can buy from them directly. If you buy in volume, they'll sell to you. I'm trying to remember how many I bought at a time. 20? Not sure. But, and you can still keep buying them. My email server intercepts the headers being sent and will remove the IP address if present. Are you sure about that, MJ? Sure about that? Are you sure about that? Because, it's a standard protocol. So you have to do the interception at the particular point. So maybe use authenticator for 2FA. Yeah, you can do that too. You can do that too if it's available. I'd rather use authenticator like Authy if I can, but the problem is it's not always available. Do you do live chats on Friday and Saturday? No, I only do it on Friday. Only Friday. I've been trying to de-Google myself for almost 3 years now. I can't give up on Google Drive and email, but everything else is replaced with alternatives. Well, you don't have to give up Google Mail, especially if the identity is not you, meaning not your real name. But otherwise, partition devices. If you're forced to use it because of work, create a different device. Use it on a virtual machine. Something to isolate it from everything else you do. That's one way of doing it, and I've told Mike L. here to do that. Set up if you want to do certain kinds of behavior like things related to work, do it from a virtual machine so you don't infect the rest of your system. Virtual machine will prevent browser fingerprinting and all these kinds of things. And then put a VPN on top of it. Okay, so it doesn't connect your identity, and if so, then it's kind of too late to change. And then, but your old identity, but you break apart your activity, so the old persona doesn't do anything outside of what you want it to be seen doing. And I get an example of this is you're a real estate agent. Well, everyone knows your name as a real estate agent. And everyone expects to see stuff related to real estate on your activity. Okay, too late to change that, right? But do you really need your Facebook to be tied to that? So if you're in real estate, you really need your politics to be tied to your real estate? So some of you are not careful about that. And it's like, is it really necessary to discuss your politics in relation to your work? Why do you need to be profiled with that? Do you understand that when somebody knows your politics, that the messages to you will be focused? Now I'm getting a specific messaging on my YouTube watching. I've been getting specific advertising on my YouTube channel, and it even specifically mentioned a party that said your party, and I love it because it's not my party. I love it because disinformation is completely working when the message actually think that it got me because it actually labeled me as belonging to this party, and it actually was drawing me to doing something for the party, and it's not my party, then I know I'm doing it right. So that's an example of the right kind of disinformation. So they're not succeeding with me, but they're succeeding with more people. They're getting the message across. In my case, Zakam. Don't push the hated one here. It was all that gunslinging I like. What do you like? What happens if we disable all telemetry services out of the 350 play services? You can't. You know, maybe you don't understand this, but when you install Google Apps, so there's AOSP, which is the original open source. So everything on AOSP is open source. It comes from the original one from the AOSP project, which is run by Google, but they have to expose all the source code. So some apps, for example, the SMS app, is replaced by one made by Google. So you don't have access to the original message SMS app anymore. They overwrite it with one that not only does SMS, but also does telemetry to Google. How are you going to undo that? Because you don't have the ability to replace it with the older one. Okay, and that applies to any number of things. The way Wi-Fi works, the way Wi-Fi scanning works, all of that's been replaced by a new module. It didn't just add programs, they replace existing ones. So that's why you cannot undo Google apps or gaps. You cannot do it. It's impossible. Okay, worst you can do, best you can do is not log in ever, meaning do a factory reset on your Google phone. Don't ever log in, and at least and never use the store. And at least it will still do Wi-Fi scanning and all that, but at least it won't have complete information. So that's the best you can do. It's not perfect. Okay, but once you log in once, you're zucked. That's it. You might as well do a reset, start again. Can you install a basic gaps that come with GMS and the Google Play? No, you want to install no gaps and then install GMS from MicroG, and then Aurora Store instead of Google Play. That's what you do. It's in my DeGoogling video. So you take an AOSP, no gaps, then you load F-Droid, because on F-Droid you can get the Aurora Store, and then you have to manually install MicroG, and then there you go. Then it will function kind of like a normal Android. It can't accept payments. So if your app requires payments, it's not going to work. And if your app requires a lot of Google services, it won't work. But most things work. 90% will work. And you don't need to do anything extra. If somebody says, but you're not using graphene, whatever. It's like, okay, who cares? Okay, no, you don't need it. Okay. Fancy, but it's not important for what we're trying to do. Okay, it's not important for what we're trying to do. If you have a graphene, it's nice that it does all that, but to be honest, it's not important to the cause. Okay, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to lose your data. If somebody manipulated your phone, you lose all your data on the phone. But you're smart. You don't put data on the phone, so it doesn't matter. Going ham on privacy. What is good for me? I only use Signal and the stupid bank apps. Signal requires the Aurora Store and MicroG. Pancho, I already just mentioned something about Graphene OS. That's enough. Zuckbug is trying to steal Rob's privacy message and warp it to mean security. By the way, for those of you who know me from the Periscope days, there was a watcher that was assigned to watch over me every day that I broadcasted, and the watcher was assigned by Zuck himself. He was on all my broadcasts, and if I said anything about Facebook, he was there to defend Facebook. So they were very aggressive. Nice guy, and at least they were up and up about it. They weren't hiding. So they assigned somebody to counter what I said about Facebook. Here on on YouTube, I haven't been able to say much things about Facebook because I don't know. The algorithm does not allow my videos to get viewed when I talk negatively about Facebook. So So I'll just, drop it in once in a while. I'm not going to focus my entire video on it, but just so you know, that's, the reality. It's Facebook is complete evil. How do you know it was Facebook that sent him? He's an employee of Facebook. I researched the guy. Ice Queen, or is that Ice Queen? Other than your VPN and router, what suggestions do you have for privacy while using the Microsoft 365 platform for college? Whew. It's a hard one. Because the problem with Microsoft 365 is you log in with your Microsoft ID, which is tied to your Zucking credit card. Whew. Now, if you're like me, I use LibreOffice and I don't use any Microsoft 365. So, fortunately, Microsoft is a little different animal than Google or Facebook. I mean, they do tracking, but it's not the same kind. So, you may have to just live with that if that's what you want to do. But why use Microsoft Office 365 when you can use LibreOffice for free? And you can create Word docs and all that. And you can create documents that are compatible and use a free software. So I suggest looking at free software instead that can offer compatibility to Microsoft Office 365 without paying a dime. 2 computers, one for school and one for privacy. Name a worst duo other than Facebook and privacy. That's not a duo. Facebook is by itself. A Google employee said Chrome is the best browser to protect your privacy. Ha! Of course, if you work for Google. What did I talk about in the beginning about the morality of some of these people? Yeah. Maxwell, how are you doing? How are you doing, Maxwell? How soon are we going to need overlord intervention laws? So, good day, bloke. Finally made it to your live feed. Good morning, corporate Australia. Good morning. What do you think of BitLocker? Never used it, so I don't know. I don't have an opinion yet. When I get to use it, then I'll tell you. But I don't have an opinion. Please answer. And the question is what? Is there a difference between an app from Aurora Store and Play Store? Forget about this tracker business. I've told you this many times. The trackers are cookie trackers. I mean, I have a video on it that nobody watched, okay? And I already watched that video. I said, I do not block trackers. Do you think you're safe because you block trackers? The answer is in that video. It doesn't matter if you block trackers because you can be tracked without a tracker. They don't do trackers anymore for the most part. They use something called browser fingerprinting, which does not leave a trace. So, if somebody reports trackers to me, it's like, who cares? I don't block cookies. It's a waste of time. Because I know I'm being tracked some other way. So the solution is to assume that you're always being tracked and behave accordingly, such as using browser isolation. Okay? Sell jailbroken. You don't need a jailbroken anything. Is LastPass secure? Philosophically, I don't like the fact that LogMeIn bought LastPass and LogMeIn sells remote control software, and LogMeIn has been used to basically behave as a rat, remote access Trojan, on a phone. So I don't like what the company does. But in general, I'm going to say that most password managers are probably fine. Okay, I think they're fine. I use KeePass myself. It's free, open source, and it's not as easy to use as KeePass, but I managed. I came up with a way to use it, in a simple way, and it's fine. So I use KeePass. So I used to use LastPass. So I had a lot of experience with LastPass, and it's the most user-friendly one. LastPass is definitely easy to use. But one of the things that you do with LastPass is you have to put a plugin on your browser. And unfortunately, that creates a fingerprint. So I don't like putting any kind of plugin on my browser. So for that reason, I don't want to use LastPass for that. So when I use KeePass, I do not use a plugin. I can use an app to give me the information I need for username, password, without having to, because in a KeePass database, if you have the key, you can open it with any kind of app. It doesn't have to be the original KeePass. So if you want to use something else, I'm not going to stop you. I don't think it's an issue. So I have no experience with Bitwarden, and some people say they like that, and I don't really have an opinion on that since I've never used it. But LastPass I've used, and definitely it is user friendly. But my preference is to use KeePass. Do you use a DNS? Do you use a DNS? If yes, which one? What does that mean? Everyone uses a DNS. If you're saying, do I use a private DNS? Zuck, no. Not going to do that. Not going to do HTTPS over DNS over HTTPS. I am not going to do that. That is zucked up. I have a video on that. No. I'm not going to allow somebody to centralize my DNS. So if you have my VPN uses Pi-hole as a DNS. So it automatically Pi-holes your DNS, and then the rest it forwards over to whatever, Google, Cloudflare. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you don't get it. You're actually getting your DNS from the Pi-hole server. The Pi-hole gets it from wherever, Google. It doesn't matter. It's a central point. So every user of my VPN share the same DNS for all people. So you don't get identified. So that's part of the VPN services. I'm one of the few VPN services that offer that. By the way, somebody wanted me to offer a VPN server in India. So I'll do that. I'll fire up a India server maybe tomorrow or next day. This weekend, I'll fire up a server in India this weekend, and we can do a test and see. I don't have a lot of Indian users, but we can start, and I'll do a small one for now, and see if it's worth it. But I will. I already fired up some servers in Australia after doing Europe. So my VPN is in Europe, Australia, and then I'll do India next, and obviously the US. Signal is much better than WhatsApp, obviously, but WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, they all have the same flaw, which is that zucking phone number. That really bothers me. Okay, so until Signal changes that, I haven't tried the new one. I was going to do a video on it. There's a new desktop desktop Signal. And I wonder if that can be used without a phone number. So a new desktop Signal is available for using a computer. So that's brand new. And I'll try it out and see if it works. So, and I wonder if they already included the no phone number on it. Okay, so we're running out of time here. I got 15 minutes. For the whole disk encryption, do you have any recommendation? Well, as you know, you have options on Linux. So, whatever, there's disk encryption options on Linux. So you can research that for your particular distro. So that's a good idea to do. Is LTE communication safe? Because I think there's a security issue in the way the protocol works, which 3 letters agencies track people. Well, obviously. So that's in my video, Who's Spying on Your Phone, Part 1 and Part 2. So if you want to learn about all that, it's there. The good thing is that it's a threat really from governments. It's not really a common threat from a hacking point of view. So I kind of gave up on it because there's no solution. Yes, they can track you. So the solution, if you don't want to get tracked, is remove the SIM card. Then the tracking stops. So if you're using a phone that's CDMA that does not use a SIM card, you're sucked. So that's one of the reasons I do not use CDMA. So I want a phone with a SIM card. I do not want eSIM, because then you can't remove it. I want to be able to remove the SIM card physically, and the only way I will do that is to have a SIM card slot, not an eSIM. So that's one of the biggest privacy concerns I have, is the trend towards doing eSIM. So new iPhones will probably have eSIM. You can't use desktop signal without a phone number. Zuck. Ignite. That's bad news. So yeah, that's bad news. So I only use Signal with people I know. I'm not going to use Signal with people I don't know, because I don't want to give them my phone number. Okay, so it does, and every time I go on the phone, and anyone who knows my phone number says, oh, such and such is on Signal. And, they could be friends, enemies, it could be anyone. And it's like, Zuck, where's my privacy with this? So I don't like it. Okay? So in order to use Signal, you have to use a new phone number. It's like, what the Zuck? I don't, and then how do I change the phone number? It's too difficult. No, I'm going to make a video maybe next week on the Brave browser. Forget Brave browser. You should use Brave browser as one of the browsers, but if you think you're blocking something, that's BS. That's BS. I go watch my video, browser threat test, and I test a Brave browser. Of course, you can fingerprint a Brave browser. Stupid. And watch 2 videos. The browser threat test video, which has a test on there. The link is brex.me/geo. And then there's another one, which is the new video I made on why I don't block cookies. Watch those 2. Nobody watched that one, the one on cookies, because nobody wants to hear something that doesn't conform to what they believe. So I don't know why people come here and say, I'm here to promote Brave browser. It's so fantastic. Yes, you can use Brave. I don't have a problem with using Brave. But don't come here with promises that say Brave is somehow better than whatever. It's not. Okay? You can't stop browser fingerprinting with Brave. So what does Brave do? It blocks cookies. But since most of the attacks no longer use cookies, what's the point? Okay? The point is that the solution is called browser isolation. Use multiple browsers. Use 5. Well, I use 5. On a typical day, I'll use 4. Since I don't have Facebook, if you have Facebook, you need to use probably more. But yeah, I use 5, and I partition my activities based on browser. So again, this is kind of a quick tip here before I run out of time. What I do is for anything related to Google, like YouTube, Chrome. Don't tell me you hate Chrome. Don't tell me you hate Chrome. That's bullshit. Because if you're on YouTube, use Chrome. Why? Because they're not going to take any more data. They already have it on YouTube. So if you're going to use Chrome with the login and all that, it's fine. Use Chrome. Now, if you're going to use something that's not Google, do not use Chrome. So what I do is on the top of my bookmarks toolbar, let's say I have Chrome. Well, I do. I have Chrome, Firefox as my top 2, let's say. So on my toolbar on Chrome, I got YouTube, Gmail, all the things I do on Chrome, I have it on the Chrome top toolbar. But if I want to do PayPal, Amazon, and all that, they're not on that toolbar. They're on my Firefox toolbar. Then I know, oh, segregation. So what happens is then Chrome can't get my information on what I'm doing on Amazon or on PayPal or whatever because it's on a separate browser. So they're not getting information they don't already have. So I give them Chrome because, they already have that anyway. So they can't do browser fingerprinting on themselves. It's the same app. So they're not going to get any data. So keep them there, isolate them to that. Firefox for everything else. And then if you're using Facebook, I would put that on Brave as an example. You don't have to. But just a third browser. Facebook needs to be by itself. Do not mix it up with anything else. Was a stability 2 years now? It's a treat. Brave allows browser fingerprinting. Your regardless is lost that it's better. Brave has good UI. Sure. That's okay with me. If you like Brave because of its appearance, that's fine with me too. I use all of them. So if you're going to tell me which browser's better, I don't know. I use all of them. All the time. Okay? I use all of them all the time. So is there anything better? Not really. I mean, it's not enough for me to notice. Sometimes I have a problem like finding things on, let's say, Firefox. Because it's a little bit different. It's less consistent. So you kind of have to get used to the way Firefox is set up because they hide things and, even simple things like bookmarks menu. It's a little bit more tricky on Firefox than it is on Chrome because I'm more used to doing those things on Chrome. So otherwise, Brave is based on Chromium, so it's kind of Chrome-based. You want to be like everyone else. Actually, that's true. You want to appear to be like everyone else. So if I were you, I would not load any extension on my browser. The more black and white your browser is, the more generic it looks. No extensions, no add-ons. The more you appear to be less fingerprinted. So that's what I would suggest. So if, for example, you're going to use LastPass, do you really want to use a browser extension on there for that? Because that will identify you. So they're going to look for somebody with Brave and a LastPass with such a screen and computer, and you're going to be ending up to be one of the few. So if you put a ad blocker or a specific type of thing like Privacy Badger, that will identify you even more, because if you block cookies, block JavaScript, you will be one of the few. You'll be identified in a flash, and you will get tracked more. So the trick is, do not do zucking no script. Come on, some of you guys are like, don't listen to whatever. Where do you get the stuff? Who tells you this? What, Hated One? I don't even know. I don't watch him. But where do you get the stuff? Don't use that. Make sure your configuration is about as basic and as common as you can make it. Do not do anything that makes you stand out. It's somebody says security by obscurity is not true security. Yeah, right. When it comes to browser fingerprinting, the solution is obscurity. Unfortunately, for browser fingerprinting, that is the only answer, because there's no solution to browser fingerprinting. The only solution to browser fingerprinting is the solution I came up with, is browser isolation plus making your session generic. Do not put HTTPS everywhere. Don't put anything. Do not load anything on it that make you stand out. Nothing. Nothing. The more unique your extensions are, the more you're being tracked like crazy. Okay? And plus, some of you don't even have a VPN. And then combine that with that fingerprint, and you're saying, I'm using Brave, I'm safe. It's like, suck. You're safe from what? I mean, the guys at the ad tech are laughing at you. Oh, you're using Brave, and you think you're blocking cookies, and yet you do all these special extensions. You're running Privacy Badger, HTTPS everywhere. You no script, block JavaScript, and what else? All these things that are unique. LastPass, and then you have a special brand of computer, and then certain screen size. They got you locked down. How many people are going to have that configuration, especially with blocking JavaScript? It's so rare now for somebody to block JavaScript. Very rare. Do not do that. In this case, and this is one of the few cases, and don't come to me acting like some cybersecurity expert. In this case, obscurity is security for this very specific thing. Okay? Obscurity is security for browser fingerprinting only. Okay, there may be other exceptions, but right now the only exception is browser fingerprinting. Otherwise, obscurity can be replaced by something more active, which is called disinformation. The way he gets angry, I don't get angry, by the way. It's come on, man. I've been doing live streaming for 5 years. It's a bit of a game, okay? You guys love it when I go crazy. So the going crazy is you guys encourage it, so I do that. I may be wrong on the extensions. You are wrong in the extensions. No, that is not good. No, Madashi, no, that is not good. No, you are so identified with that. Oh my gosh. And then you use Brave too. You are so identified. No. Generic. Partition your work into browser isolation. Chrome for Google things, Firefox for everything else, Facebook and someplace else, and however you want to classify. Maybe you do work things, work research in another browser, however you want to classify it. Maybe you do a lot of eBay and you want to partition that, then use another browser for that. The point is, partition your work, and then the cookies can't transfer anyway, or browser fingerprinting. It will be useless because browser fingerprinting does not work across browsers yet. They're working on that. Incognito mode, another. Don't waste your time on that, please. Okay? Another useless thing. I didn't even make a video about incognito mode because it's kind of a waste of time. Okay? All I'm just because there's only one sentence answer. Do not use incognito mode. Scratch. How is Firefox more secure in comparison to other browsers? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What you're doing is called browser isolation. You don't want to be fingerprinted. And the way you don't get fingerprinted is if you don't have any behavior that makes you unique. It doesn't matter. What is this? It says secure. What does that mean? Okay. Do you feel secure because you blocked the trackers, but they're still doing browser fingerprinting? What's the point? Some of you need to go back and watch my video on why I do not block cookies. And watch my videos, older videos on browser threat test, and the best browser to use in 2019 and so on. Those videos explain the idea of browser fingerprinting, and I actually wrote a program on browser fingerprinting, so you can check it yourself and see that I can actually browser fingerprint Brave. So why would you use that? And I did kind of a simplistic browser fingerprinting thing there, but I can browser fingerprint 5 ways. So if I can't identify you one way, I'll take another, and if I take enough of a stab at it, I'll get you. Do you think the Pine Phone will? Yes, the Pine Phone will get fixed someday, but people are working part-time on it. So it's not a full-time activity, and that's the problem. So it needs those people working on the OS to work as a team. Right now, they're all working independently on their own. The problem with that chat chaos and the confusion to be solved by just some aggregating some basics in text. Does disabling a browser extension good enough to reduce a fingerprint, or do you need to uninstall it? Uninstall it. It should not exist. Uninstall it, because the browser fingerprint can query and says what extensions are loaded, what extensions are disabled, and that in itself is a fingerprint. No, uninstall it. Uninstall it. Have you ever heard of IPFS? Sounds like a decentralized file system to me. Great for tracking you forever. Okay, which kind of relates to another topic, which is the use of things like Matrix, XMPP, and so on for messaging. So yeah, they're great for politics because they can never delete what you say. But that's the problem. They can never delete what you say. And they have your IP address and metadata with it. So, okay. Are you versed? What does that mean? How can I get rid of my gambling addiction online? Some cryptos use this in their... Well, for crypto, you need it because it's... for crypto, it's fine because it's supposed to be blockchain permanent. But for conversations, I probably wouldn't want to do that. Okay. I don't actually know of IPFS specifically, but there's so many of them. Even Library, the platform I'm on, is based on decentralized file systems. So I feel I'm being ignored. There's just too many people here, Russ. So I will delete every extension. Is permanent data what happens if we store data on the blockchain? Yes. Is Telegram safe as a social network? Just don't use your real name. I think it's fine. It's just like any other social network. Just don't use your real name and then live with what you post. If you lose all your money, you can't gamble anymore. There you go. What do you think of XMPP if connecting through a Tor proxy? I don't think of anything. XMPP is permanent like Matrix. So, do you want that? Can be good, can be bad. Okay, again, depends on the purpose. I read today there's an extension called Facebook Container. Oh, don't do that, Russ. Facebook Container is nothing new. That's been part of Firefox for a while. It's no different than Facebook Containers is part of Firefox. No, you'll get fingerprinted. The fingerprint is the same with a container. The solution is browser isolation. Actual separate browsers is more effective than a Facebook container, which really just blocks cookies. So it's not good enough for browser fingerprinting. No, don't do that. Okay, I'm out of time. I've already gone 3 minutes over here. So thank you guys. I will release a video tomorrow. So maybe I'll release it on Library tonight, and then I'll release it on YouTube tomorrow. So when will you release a new Linux and ASP? King Sing, when I have something to release, I'll tell you. Okay, good night, guys. Thank you for watching. And that's a lot of questioning there. And yes, some of you can't get through anymore, but my goodness, it's kind of like the Periscope days, but with more detail. So thank you for watching, guys. And like I said, you get an extra video this week. I still do my regular videos, and I've already made an extra one for the week. So, and then again, to remind you, I made a new channel called Rob the Half-Baked Prepper, so that I can put my boating, ham radio, solar panels, and solar energy things on there, because my boat is basically off-grid. Could be. So it's theoretical, since I'm not going to go off-grid, but the boat is, in theory, able to go off-grid, because that's what a boat is. So we'll use it as an experimental platform. I will not live on the boat. I am not a cruiser. but it's fun to experiment and see what I can do with it. So that's part of the fun. Okay, so I moved my ham radio stuff on there, and then we'll see how that works. So talk to you or see you in a video tomorrow. Good night.